Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Academy of Being, where you get to discover the power within you. My name is Tara, and I am the one who has created this podcast and YouTube channel in order to invite people to a greater space of being and experiencing life. So, those of you who are listening to the podcast, you can't see that I'm sitting on my cozy couch in our music room. Experiencing the sun coming in under a blanket and just really enjoying life today so that I can share with you a really important space of being. And this space of being I call grace. And I'm bringing it up, and I'm going to share some stories with you, but I'm bringing it up because I have asked to be more grace with myself lately. And in asking for that, the universe and my body has brought to me different moments to remind me of when grace showed up through me and for me, and when I wasn't being grace in my life. And so I'm going to start off with sharing some moments with you that I wasn't grace. Okay. In my past, I was somebody who was always rushing. I had so much to do and so many places to go and so many people to serve and so many goals that I was everything the opposite of grace. I was fast and moving and not present. I was already at the next place, and I was very blunt. I was very bullet pointed, and I just wanted to get to the point. And I probably thought at that point that was a contribution to all. Like, don't give me the fluff, don't give me the story, just get to the point, ask me for what you want to ask me. I'll tell you yes or no, or I'm going to tell you exactly what I need, and let's just get it done. And that might be really effective if your whole life is about getting to the next goal and getting things done. Where my life really was at the time. I was all about getting things done, reaching my targets at work, trying and striving for another promotion, getting things done at home. It just seemed like the list of to dos was never ending. And that was my life. It was finding how to get the to do list down, and yet finding that it was never ever exhausted, right? But what I found is that it left me empty. It left my marriage empty. And it even left my striving and thriving in my job very empty. And it took a while. It's like it didn't deteriorate right away. It was slow. So it wasn't obvious what I was doing to my own life. It was like this slow leak. And then all of a sudden, one day, everything was flat. It was meaningless. And I couldn't put my finger on why. I remember thinking, well, I don't know that I want to carry on. I don't know what I'm connected to. Like, what's the meaning? Where's the joy? And I don't even know that I cared about joy at that point, but I wasn't happy, but I wasn't unhappy. I was flat. So I just want to ask you if maybe you're feeling that way. If you're feeling flat in your life, if you're feeling like you're useful, you're getting things done, but what does it even mean? And I wonder if your striving even feels flat, or your relationships feel flat because you just feel useful and possibly used up. Well, I know that there was probably times where I went into blame. Like, this is because my boss hasn't promoted me yet, or this is because I don't have, like, I went the wrong direction in my career and I should have gone a different direction and that I would be further along, or this is because, my husband should be doing X, Y, and Z, it's really easy to throw blame. And for a moment, it makes us feel better about ourselves, like somebody else is to blame. And so if they would get their act together, if my boss would get her act together, if I had less responsibilities, if my husband would just help out more, then everything would be better. The problem with blame is very few times, very rarely, do you find that your situation changes monumentally by blaming someone else. And I don't want you to turn and blame yourself either. Instead, what I want you to do is to start asking some different questions. When you move into that place of overwhelm, anxiety, deflation, the feeling like you're used up and worthless or undeserving, even, I think there was moments where I felt undeserving. I want you to ask something else. I want you to ask, what would I like to experience in my life? Not what do I want to have, right? Gosh, we're all really good. I want to have more money. I want to have more vacations. I want a bigger house. But how do I want to experience my life? And you might find that you don't have an answer. Like you don't even have an iota of an answer. But I want you to keep on asking this question and maybe even start asking other people, if you could experience life differently, how would you experience it? If life didn't necessarily even change at all, like you didn't have a bigger house, you didn't have a vacation, if you could just say today, in today, you have the same spouse, the same kids, the same job, how would you like to experience it differently? By asking this question, you bring a softness into your life. You bring the unknown and you actually start tapping deeply inside your own soul, your own body. And then you even touch on the most mystical, which is the godlike, the universal energies that have wisdom, that can pour into you what else is possible, that is beyond what your mind has ever manifested or dreamt or imagined. And in that space, you can either turn into judgment and blame and shame that, gosh, I have not created anything that I want to experience, or the experience that I'm having right now is so far off of what I dreamt, that you just move into blame and shame and judgment. Or you can move into a space of embracing not knowing and moving into a childlike, beautiful place of wonder and curiosity. It's in this space of playful wonder and curiosity that grace comes in and it seeps in and it brings the tendrils and sparkle that is possible. And it literally starts to shapeshift things. Not just things outside of you, but it starts to shapeshift you. And it brings in this new beautiful experience. And it starts to like tap on your shoulder and say, wait a minute, you asked for a different experience where you could possibly feel like you matter. Shh, shh, slow down. Notice right here. Notice the person at the drive-through who's looking at you in your eyes and who is connecting with you, who's smiling. Accept that moment. Don't ask why. Don't ask like what do they want out of this? Don't ask any of those things. Just allow yourself to experience seeing and being seen, right? Or when you come home and there's a moment between you and your child, and they want so badly to sit next to you, and yet your body is screaming for some space. And instead, you just breathe and you say, wait a minute. Earlier today, I asked for like a more bonding experience with my child. And what if this is that moment? What if it's not even a teachable moment? What if it's not like a trampoline moment, right? Like where you're going out and doing an event and having that, like, what if it's just the quiet of sitting next to each other, sharing each other's spirit and energy? And what if you allowed yourself to know that that will create, right? And that that will create something greater, a greater experience than you could ever hope for. And then let's say you have some problems with a friend or even your spouse, your partner, whichever you want to say. And if you're anything like me, like I was the person who went up and I was direct and I would say, like, something's off with us, what's going on? How are you feeling? Or I'm feeling, I used all my words so well. Like I was taught from little, like, use your words, use your words. And so I would use my words in the way that I was taught, and I would form it in the form of I, like, I'm feeling neglected. I'm feeling like you're mad at me, or whatever it is, right? But still extremely direct. Instead of being the space of grace, again, here's how grace could look in the situation where things are a bit bumpy with your spouse. You take the time to write down what isn't going right. And then the next part is where the magic begins. Ask, write down what your ask is. How do you want it to be? Not how do you want them to be? How do you want your relationship to be? Right? So you could be saying, like, I'm sick and tired of them not helping out around the house. And so I want them to help out around the house. There's a different space. So the different space is asking for how you want the we to be, how you want your relationship to be. I want it to be fun again. I want us to be supporting. I want us to do things together. Like, how much fun would it be to do things together? And then ask yourself, what would that look like? How would I need to be to begin to foster that space? And it might mean that you're helping him with something, and in allowing yourself to not do it out of duty, but to do it in a fun and playful way. And that in so doing, and then saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea like how much fun it would be to paint the fence together or to stain the fence together. Like it was like we used to be when we dated. That space when like everything together wasn't work, it was just play. That. And then grace allows for things to start to happen that you didn't even expect, which is while you're possibly cooking dinner, he helps cook dinner, and that you both clean up the kitchen together. And it's done as a space of bonding and playfulness, not duty, right? Gosh, not duty. None of us actually love duty. Where, it's a really a space where we get to serve and be kindness, but sometimes we don't always want to be serving and to be useful. We want more playfulness in our lives. And so when we move past how somebody else can change in order for us to have a better experience, and we start to looking at what is the better experience that we're looking for, what is the more that if we were involved we could create, that it's when grace gets in. And then when we use curiosity and wonder rather than moving to the space of how, right? When we use curiosity and wonder, we start to ask things that we don't have answers for. And what we do is we allow it to start creating inside of us so we can start becoming it. And then we allow the universe to start bringing it to us. Now, the universe, God, however you want to term it, is cheeky. At least I find cheeky in my own life. That if I give a directive, this is how I want it delivered, cheeky little devil, cheeky little God out there decides to deliver it in a way that looks different. It's not the directive, but feels the same. So I might say I would like more support from my partner or from my kids. And all of a sudden I start getting support from somebody else. Well, the universe is testing us, inviting us, really is the word, inviting us to see if we'll accept it from somebody else first before it delivers it in the form that we asked. And if we do it with grace and ease, it will deliver it again, possibly in a different way, in a different form, and then again and again until our life is filled with support in a lot of ways, and then including the way that we asked. I truly believe with all that I am that the universe and God are constantly giving us invitations to being more and to receiving more. And that it is our what is the word? Obstinance, our trapped thinking that says, oh no, it must only show up in this way for me to receive it, that gets us into trouble, because the universe wants to deliver it in as many ways as will contribute to us as possible. And sometimes it wants to see if we're willing to throw out the things that aren't actually a contribution, whether we know for ourselves. So it trusts us more than we trust ourselves. So we really need to get into trust, because it will show up a lot of things. And it's not a test. It's just, are you really going to honor what you want? So if something shows up and it's a means of support or money or whatever it is that you're asking for, but it doesn't contribute to you or honor you, be willing to say no. The universe is not limited, it's abundant. It'll go, oh, this is a no for her. Hold on, we got to course correct and deliver in a way that will actually be a contribution. I have had some ways that money has shown up for me. Possibilities of money has shown up for me in ways that were not honoring and totally not a yes for me. Now, if I was like, wait a minute, this is what the universe is bringing me, I would have dishonored myself in massive ways, massive. And so I got to choose to say no and then be curious immediately how the universe would deliver it in a way that was a contribution. Right? Because we can get into this place, well, oh, I said no, now I'm not ever going to get anything again. Well, move back into curiosity, move back into wonder, allow grace to transform your relationships, your money flows, your support, your connection, and so much more. What will start to happen is you will begin to have the life that you desire and more. You will begin to be the person that you can live with, that you look and you get up in the morning and you're like, oh, I get to live with you. We get to create together, you and me. Your spirit and your body and your mind get to come together whole, instead of constantly waging war against each other. That is how grace transforms your own experience, as well as how it transforms the experience that others get to experience with you. Gosh, that word experience, I'm saying it multiple times. Allow that to happen. Allow yourself to soften, to allow things to come in with less linearity and more blossoming. And that is how your whole life will transform. It's like the radiance, the afterglow, right? It's when a light turns on and there's just this ambiance that happens. That is how your life will be. Or you can continue to be linear, list oriented, uh, blunt, to the point, confrontational, addressing matters, right? It all feels a bit like a battle, right? And it feels prickly. And I'm sure that anyone who encounters that from you also feels a little bit bristly. But instead, if you begin to get clear on what you want your experience to be, how you want to experience yourself, how you want to experience relationships, how you want to experience money, things radiate from that space. And you create an ambiance that pulls things in and it feels safe for you and for others. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of this call where I said to you, this word grace really came up for me lately because I'd gotten really blunt with myself. I'd gotten back to my lists of things that I needed to be and accomplish. I wrote them down, and this is what needed to change. And really, within that was a whole lot of judgment. And I have to admit that to you guys because the judgment felt awful and it was sabotaging any bit of success that I could possibly have. But more than it was sabotaging the success, it was sabotaging the experience I had on a moment to moment basis with myself. So I had to go back into grace. Now, grace does not mean that I don't want to create. Grace means I'm going to create greater than I could linearly. It means that I'm at the center of all things that are getting created, and my experience is either going to help it to grow and expand, or it's going to deteriorate it. I have a hard time with that word. So, any of you who are like, whoa, she can't say that word, you got it right. I'm struggling with it. So, when I move into grace and I get into, again, I'm just going to say, grace is about asking the questions about how I want to experience my life and moving into a space of curiosity and pulling in my spirit, my wise spirit that's wiser than my mind, as well as my source, which is the universe. And in the universe is everything that exists, people, wind, animals, all of it. And asking for assistance to get to a place where these things are contributing and I am contributing to a greater experience, a greater way of having, a greater way of creating. And then when it starts to happen, even in little doses, moving into a space of really sinking into the experience, allowing it to affect my presence, allowing it to like seep into my pores of my body and to ooze out, allowing myself to be the space of joy without pulling up fear. But if fear pulls up, it's okay because I just move back to a space of curiosity and wonder. If fear comes up and it says, but what if you don't keep creating this? I just go, okay, I wonder if I did. Or I wonder what else is possible. Or I wonder what my power is. And knowing that I desire to experience a life of deep and meaningful connection to myself, deep and meaningful connection to my family, even more amplified connection with new people, that I constantly am meeting people who are deep, who have purpose, who desire purpose if they don't have purpose, and that they desire to have conversations about that. And that we're all investing in ourselves. And that, like, what if everything that I desire comes to me with more ease and that I celebrate that place? And, here's for me, I'm just going to give you another one, like bodies, right? Bodies, there's a whole world out there that constantly is saying, especially that women's bodies, no matter what shape or form you're in, what age, there's something wrong. That you need to like put this makeup on and do it in this way and wear this type of clothes and have this, frozen so that you can get rid of that fat or blah, blah, blah. Reduce this, enhance that. That we don't often ask, if I took away any of those goals and I just sat with my body and I said, if I could experience life with you, how would I like to experience my body? And maybe you don't even have words, but as I'm asking that, like there's this amazing feeling that's coming up, and my body is just thanking me for asking, what would my body like to experience? And I go back to that word again, grace. It would like to have more grace, but also my body it wants more pleasure, it wants more fun, it wants more movement, it wants, like, it's kind of gluttonous. It wants more. And so when I go into asking what kind of experience it would like to have, it's really clear. It wants more. And so when I ask, like, what more? More walks. And not just like boring exercise walks. It wants to have interactive walks where I'm bonding, right, with an animal, or I'm bonding with another person by taking a dog for a walk or going for a walk with a person, like, so that it becomes even more of an experience. My body wants more. When I go to ask it what kind of experience, it will tell me. But it's not telling me that I need to follow any of those things that are in the marketing commercials. It doesn't need to work out in that way so that it can get smaller. It just wants to have more fun. It wants to be celebrated. It wants more pleasure. So I get to do that. It's not really worried about what my eyelashes look like or my eyebrows or even my hair. It just wants to have a greater experience. And it would like to be more of the spirit that I have inside, which is very, very wackadoodle at times. If you don't know what that is, hang out with me a little bit longer. You'll find out. I don't follow a lot of the protocols. I just am who I am. And I enjoy that. It's whimsical. It's in age inappropriate. I can feel like I'm 4 at times, and then other times I feel like I'm wise, like I'm 70. And so allowing that to come in without reserve, without filter, allowing myself to be who I am and show up. That's what my body wants. That. And so when I begin to ask what experience I'm looking for, I can start creating it. I can start receiving it. And I can start also looking at the areas where I am investing my time and attention that's actually not contributing. It's taking away from me. And I can course correct so that I can invite myself to a greater experience, greater pleasure, more playfulness. And then the cool thing is when you begin to radiate from that space of being and that space of experience, some of the asks that you didn't even think would get touched because they can't help it. So sometimes when you're asking and you're listening to your experience about your body, all of a sudden your business starts to grow because you start living from the truth of who you are, the radiance of who you are. And then it's like, why all of a sudden am I getting more clients? Or why all of a sudden is my relationship with my kids better? Because you are more centered. You are flowing from the space of being who you are instead of trying to control who you are to fit in with patterns and societal desires that maybe your spirit doesn't actually desire to be. And grace will show you that it doesn't have to wage war. I am living proof that as you begin to overflow with the space of who you are, there's a beautiful thing that happens. If you are willing to give up judgment in yourself, you allow others to not desire to judge you. Or if they do, they actually show up and they find grace and acceptance for you too, because you allow yourself to find grace and acceptance for them. So have some fun with this. I can't wait to hear your feedback. And thanks for showing up, especially if you're on YouTube. You got to see how the funny light was coming in with the blinds. Sorry if that got annoying for you. But I just wanted to follow spirit today and really show up for you in the space that I'm in, and to really just allow it to flow through. I hope I touched your heart and your soul. And I hope that your mind will get on board with the expansion and experience that your body and soul know are possible for you.